Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Today, I am so beyond excited. The last time this man was on our show, it was the run-up to the election, and he said if Kamala won, he would come back on the show. Well, that unfortunately did not happen, but we do have him here today, and he is talking about this amazing new part of his show, Love It or Leave It, that focuses on Bravo, reality TV, and how it took over American culture. I've listened to all episodes, and I need a dozen more. You guys, you will totally geek out about this. The concept really is, he was talking, or there was a conversation with Congresswoman Sarah McBride, and she had talked about this on Pod Save America earlier that year, saying some of her colleagues were treating her the way, and they were treating her that way for a couple of reasons. One, it's because they want attention. They want to employ the strategies of a Bravo TV show to get attention in a body of 435 people. And the way to do that is to pick a fight with someone and throw wine in their face. This series really takes you behind that and shows how similar reality television is with today's political system. So please welcome Jon Lovett. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. What a nice intro.
I could have kept going. I got to tell you, the one that, your first one that you released was Terry Dubrow. And I was so blown away by this interview because, as he says, he really hides from the cameras on Real Housewives of Orange County. But you got him to reveal so many things that clarified how reality television is put together. First off, like when you're going through the guest list, you've had Parvati from Survivor, Dorinda from Roni. How did you cull this list of people that you wanted to talk to about this topic?
We really just started from who were we interested in? Like, who do I like? Who do I think would be fun to talk to? I love Survivor. I love Real Housewives. I have actually always really liked medical reality shows. I used to. I used to watch My 600-Pound Life and the journey those people went on. I'm really like we're trying to cast a wide net, because I do genuinely think we have a lot to learn from the ways reality TV has changed our culture. And there are a lot of lessons in politics. But also, I think because reality television is thought of as a guilty pleasure, which I actually think is a meaningless term. You can't eat food, ironically. You can't watch a TV show. Ironically, it doesn't make any sense. You watch it because you like it. But because it has this idea that it's frivolous, and in some ways, of course, it is, or that it's bad in some way, it's like bad culture, it doesn't get treated with a lot of, I don't know, like serious, respect, but like it just means that the people who want to have quote unquote serious conversations put their noses down at reality television. And then a lot of like there's just not a lot of reflective conversation that gives people space to just talk about what it's like to be on these shows without like that steps back from it. Like, why did you want to do it? What did you learn about it? What has it taught you about celebrity? What has it taught you about yourself? What have you learned about American culture? What are the lessons for politics? They're just really interesting questions there that I wanted to ask, and I was excited to get to ask. And we have these people, Terry Dubrow, Dorinda, Medley, Parvati, talked to John Cochran, talked to Rachel Lindsay, and which is that? It's coming out today or just came out today?
Rachel Lindsay's not out yet. I have not heard that one yet.
So Rachel Lindsay's
excited. Yeah.
So Rachel Lindsay's coming down the pike. Maybe that's a spoiler, but you come away from these conversations like we were like gobsmacked by what we learned. And the other part of it too is, the old line about like the Kardashians or whatever, that they were famous for being famous. And there are a lot of people that want to be on reality television. I've been on reality television.
Oh yeah. By the way, Survivor kicked off really such an embarrassing fact for Mr. Lovett. So well respected in all of his fields.
Yeah, sure.
Goes on reality television series. He loves Survivor. Gets kicked off immediately. Brutal. I wanted to watch you get like at least halfway through.
I know. I wanted to miss some more dinners, but what you realize when you sit across from people, I felt this when I talked to all of them, really, that there's a reason they broke through and became icons of whatever shows they were on, which is they're so charismatic. And there is a vulnerability and toughness, I think, to great reality stars that also is a lesson for politics, people who both understand why they need to be themselves, but also have an eye on what being themselves means when they're on television. It's been really interesting. You talked about Sarah McBride, and there are lessons like right now. We just saw that Donald Trump is thinking about extending the Obamacare tax subsidies. And we don't need to get into the weeds of that to understand that when Democrats picked a fight over healthcare, they may not have won the shutdown on policy, but clearly they won on attention because it changed the dynamic of the debate. A group of Democratic lawmakers record a video saying, we want to remind the military that they are constitutionally obligated to follow orders when they're lawful and that they don't have to follow orders when they're not lawful. And that has set off a big fight. That fight has got a lot of attention to the issue. And so, like it or not, look, I imagine it'd be nice if what the kind of politics we had is where you had a really smart idea. You could go down to the floor of the Congress and deliver an eloquent speech about it and, write your version of the Federalist Papers. And then everybody would get it through their pamphlets and the mail, and they'd read it and they'd imbibe it and then be persuaded by your arguments and change their minds like that. There's a version of democracy that looks like that, I suppose, the School of Rock version, but we don't live in that world. And so we have to be honest about it.
And by the way, to your point and to this show's point is that, when I turn on, I'll watch Fox News, I'll watch MS Now, I'll kind of go around, and it is really hard for reality series in this day and age to keep up with politics because that, to me, is its own Real Housewives. Like, if I go on and watch Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving her seat in the Republican Party, like, that's as interesting as Teresa Giudice flipping a table, in a sense. Donald Trump, he is our first reality star president. The Apprentice gave him such a platform and such this, and he was so, whether you like him or not, he was very charming on that show. People really gave him this kind of platform to show us this version of himself. And it is very interesting is that this is our first reality show president, and it is really swinging that way where I imagine it's hard for reality TV to keep up with politics at this point.
Yes, and he had an understanding of this instinctively around what it means to turn politics into a show and how to continue to make sure you're in the political equivalent sitting closest to Andy during the reunion.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, like, one example, right? The past couple weeks, Donald Trump has been under fire for failing to denounce someone like Nick Fuentes. And he gets asked about Tucker Carlson. He doesn't want to say anything bad about Tucker Carlson. Now, there was this huge kerfuffle when in Donald Trump's first term when he said there were fine people on both sides after Charlottesville. Now, people don't remember this, but actually that story played out over a couple of days. He first was hemming and hawing. He was under a lot of pressure, both externally and internally at the time, to denounce Nazis and white nationalists, to be more unequivocal about that. And he got persuaded to do it. And he goes out and he actually says something pretty emphatic that he, against the Nazis and against the white nationalists. He kind of gives in to those critics who wanted him to denounce those segments of the far right. And it was reported later that he considered that to be the worst speech he ever gave and one of the dumbest mistakes he's ever made. Why? Because it was he admitted that he had made a mistake. He had conceded something, and that was a sign of weakness. And then he went out and kind of walked it back, and he learned a lesson, right? And it's a reality TV lesson about showing weaknesses, admitting you're wrong, right? Like, there are some people in reality television that will do their cycle of saying something absolutely horrific and then apologizing the next day, and then they say something horrific again and they apologize the next day. But Donald Trump's model is he never wants to give any quarter. He never wants to admit a mistake. He never wants to show any kind of weakness, right? Like, that's a reality TV mentality that he's approached to politics for the entire time he's been in public life.
Yeah, and very successfully he's done this. You know, in terms of Housewives, it's really interesting because you had talked about this with the Terry DeBro interview and a little bit with the Dorinda, is that it didn't always used to be this way. We are celebrating almost 20 seasons of Real Housewives of Orange County. And it almost, if you go back and watch that first season, it seems kind of this like almost a documentary that could be nominated for an Oscar. And now it's turned into a reality competition series where it has more in line with Survivor. It's about surviving the season. And Mr. Dubrow brought this up as well, is that nobody knows if they're safe the next season. So you're trying to hit as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And they are turned into heroes and villains, just like there have been on Survivor. And I find that interesting. It didn't start this way. And I always wonder where we're headed with this. We just ended OC, and there was a huge fight of Tamra, who is so successful. I always compare her to Trump. She's able to just hit so hard so quickly. And then you have Gretchen in OG that comes back, but her history of did she like transphobic posts, anti-LGBTQ posts, and she's saying, no, this is all AI. We hired a cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. And the show almost trips itself up because they're not able to tell the audience what the truth is. And I find it interesting as a fan, be like, we're so far away from the original thesis of this show. And speaking of that, just to give the audience a little background, you watch like Dr. Pimple Popper and 600 Pound Life. You had talked about on the show, I think recently, or maybe over COVID, watching early Roni. What is your history with like kind of Bravo and Housewives?
So I have now watched all of the OG New York. I've watched all of Vanderpump. I watched all of Vanderpump. I watched the first couple seasons of Beverly Hills, but put that aside to go into Vanderpump. I've watched Salt Lake, though I missed the early Jen Shah seasons. I actually came to it later, believe it or not. I want to go back and catch up because I started that. I just caught, my partner was watching it and I just got sucked in. So I watched the season after Jen Shah was gone and ever since. And I'm going through Atlanta. I'm about to enter season 3 of Atlanta. So I'm early and I'm loving Atlanta. Atlanta.
I was wondering, like, as a person like you that I kind of look up to in so many ways, like when you watch these things, do you even have this secondhand reflex, like you were talking about at first, of like, I shouldn't be liking this, or are you immediate like, I like this?
I didn't understand what it was until I started watching it. I liked Survivor. I liked The Amazing Race. And then I did like the shows like Intervention and My 600 Pound Life and Hoarders, believe it or not, but those all have arcs to them. They have a kind of, competition isn't the right word for all of them, but these shows, I understand yes, of course you're finding out about these people and their lives, but there's a path to it. They're trying to achieve something. They're trying to get somewhere, whether it's to win or to lose weight or to clean up their lives, whatever it might be. And I didn't understand like Bravo and Real Housewives. It was like Survivor without the games. I was like, I didn't understand what I'm going to see here. It's like only the conflict. I don't get it. Now I, of course, get it. Look, there is writing on these shows that is better than any Emmy-winning drama or comedy. There are stories that are better than any prestige HBO series. I mean, look at Real Housewives of New York. Luann begins as a countess writing books about manners. A few seasons later, she is accidentally biting the mustard packet inside the bologna sandwich she was given while sleeping in the jail after she was arrested for threatening to kill a cop. And that evolution was, every step was surprising. Every step was earned. Vince Gilligan in Better Call Saul, in Breaking Bad, could not reproduce the magic that was that character arc. So they're excellent shows. Now, there is something, look, I don't think you need to pretend that just, everything you don't like isn't bad and everything you do like isn't good. There are, like, I think, deep ethical and moral questions in some of these shows, especially when there are kids on screen. And I've asked a lot of my guests about that, especially when, people are set against each other. And sometimes why is entertaining is you're watching someone give up their privacy and dignity in order to make money and be on camera. And, the other thing that I think is really interesting about the Real Housewives world is you're right. At the beginning of these shows, it did feel more like a documentary. I think that was true of Survivor as well.
Yeah.
And there is almost a natural, organic quality to how reality shows evolve. There's artists. This is going to be such a pretentious analogy, but deal with that. I don't give a shit. Look, like an artist, like the path of some of the great artists looks similar. They start by being really focused on excellent form and technique, and as they get older, they become either bored or experimental. They slowly cast aside all the technique they learned to focus more on pure emotion and getting at the deeper thing. And so the paintings get more wild and crazy and interesting and less sort of whatever, quote unquote, beautiful or precise. With reality, there is also this organic path that all these shows tend to take, which is they begin more authentically as kind of a form of a documentary, whatever that may be. And as the shows evolve, the people inside the shows become more and more expert at the shows, and they begin more and more to produce themselves.
Self-producing, yep.
And the shows then become like manufactured. They become meta, and people come to the shows with expectations for how they can succeed inside of the show. But then that becomes like then guests come on, then people start coming on who have watched it through the years where the guests were already aware of how the show was produced. And you get into this sort of deeper, like, and so so then the show itself is not a reality. It's simply this world and how
what it is of the reality. Yeah. I mean, Survivor, I feel sometimes suffers from this as well, is that these people are so obsessed with Survivor that they're quoting moves from every different season instead of just playing the game. They're trying to make that big sweeping move instead of actually just playing the game. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like Survivor suffers from that. But to your point, Housewives do too. And you haven't gotten to the season of Beverly Hills where Denise Richards says, bravo, bravo, fucking bravo, because that was the cue that they had to stop filming and a producer has to rush in. And so she knew that if she said that, she wouldn't have to face like a barbaric insult. And I thought always that was fascinating, but that's where we've headed into this meta influencer like genre where it is having to turn back on itself because it's eating its own tail.
Is that a moment where that she started, because you're not obviously like you're not supposed to talk about the fact that you're on the show. Is that exactly. So she says that, and they include that to know, is that they kind of keep that in the show because they were aware.
That in, and you hear the producer going, Denise, what, like he's frustrated obviously, but that in terms of like Bravo fans or anybody listening or watching will know exactly that was an iconic moment for even us as Bravo fans, because it was the first thing kind of shattered the reality. And then I would argue Scandival as well really used that to great effect. And now you will see that peppered into like all new seasons where we're starting to get more and more referential to the meta and to being filmed, or to even like a Jim Halpert look at the camera from characters.
Yeah, it's interesting because what is it that breaking that fourth wall does? Like, what is the illusion that's actually being broken? Because everyone watching knows that this is in some sense manufactured. Like, how many times have you watched a moment on one of these shows where they come home and there's already a camera inside their home filming them as they enter, right? Like we're aware, like, what do you mean? Like they've already been here. They've already been here. This took time to set up.
I'm going to bed, but there's a cameraman in khaki shorts filming you to sleep. Come on.
Right. Like, yeah, where they wake up and kind of blurry eyed. It's like, okay, I don't think so. I think that you just lay back down and got you're in full makeup. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I do think it's, to me, that it's about like, when is it? What's the real emotion, right? Like, I think that you can break the fourth wall and call attention to the fact that it's a show, but you're still keeping something honest and raw. Like, I actually think Scandival did that, right? Like, there was a rawness and realness to the thing that was so big that really it didn't matter the machination. Like are we on camera? Are we off camera? Are we, like, like all of that? Like, it just felt like, because the scandal was so big, that didn't matter. I more feel like the problem is when you're still ostensibly inside the reality of the show, but you're so clearly watching people that are trying to create something that they think will be a good moment that feels completely false. And to me, that to me is the bigger problem. And by the way, like, I think, Survivor has this issue too. Whenever in the early seasons of Survivor, there was an ethic that came from the outside world about lying is wrong, right? Lying to people, tricking people, breaking bonds, breaking loyalties. These are the wrong thing to do in the real world. And therefore, if you do them in the show as a move, it's villainous. It could be a good move. It could get you further in the game. It might cost you in the final vote because you weren't acting as a quote unquote good person. And now that had its problems, right? Because it's actually not true. Like, the reason lying in real life is bad, the reason these ethics are good, are not just because they're aesthetically pleasing and it feels bad to be lied to. It's because a society where people are honest is one where you can spend more time, building homes instead of walls and fences, right?
Yeah.
The more money that goes to locking your doors is less money for food, right? Like, life is not a zero-sum game, and a distrustful society is a society that's poor. And so there's value to trust. There's deeper values to trust. In Survivor, it's not. Everybody can be honest, one person wins. Everyone can be fucking liars, and one person wins. It's a zero-sum game, which means there's no inherent goodness to telling the truth inside of this world. And now the players all instinctively get that, because villains have come through and done well, and now it's about a resume and you're maneuvering, right? But that creates another strange incentive, because then you're doing the trickery is not to get through the round, it is to prove you're the kind of person that could pull a big move. No general in any war has said, I don't just want to win the war, I need to prove to the world I'm the best general, so I'm going to take an unnecessary risk. I'm going to make a big move because otherwise I'm not a great general. No, you do whatever it takes to win, because winning is the only thing that matters. And so there are perverse incentives. It's true in the reality. It's true on Bravo. It's true on Survivor. When the performance of being good at Survivor or being good at reality television becomes a good unto itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like audiences have become so savvy in terms of even how we consume. And to your point, like, the audience can tell when something's real and when something isn't. And Scandal was interesting because Vanderpump had turned into a kind of a show that you could flip around on Twitter or Threads or whatever while you were watching it. And Scandal made you put your phone down. You're like, oh, this is actually real. So far, these interviews have been fantastic. And I just wanted to get your take on, because it was like with the Dorinda one was great. Like, I almost felt like you were in an episode of Roni for a second, because there were a couple moments where she almost was like, I can hang with this. No, I love this. This is great. And there almost seemed to be like a mild flirtation she had with you at a certain point, which is like Parvati as well. How you talk about the star quality with those two ladies in particular. I think you definitely felt it with Parvati. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, look, but these are just, these are charming people. Dorinda is so charming. And, you look at somebody like Dorinda, and I talked to her about this directly. And by the way, basically saw both sides of her in that moment, which is, why do we like Dorinda so much? How do we like her so much when she's had moments where she can be like pretty mean to people? And she didn't even like that, even using the word mean. She's like, I am not mean. And it's like, well, okay. I hear you not liking that word, but you have said incredibly harsh things to people, and you can claim it's always in response, but you've gone pretty hard at people on some pretty personal things. And it just is, I think it speaks to why she was such a great reality star. She's so charming and funny and good to talk to that you kind of take the good with the bad. B, she's vulnerable. There's just an openness to her. Her emotions are very close to the surface. And then C, even as she's so vulnerable, there does seem to be a way in which she's just not willing to see herself the way that we might see her.
Which is
And
like that's your perfect housewife.
perfect. Now Parvati is is different. And she's someone who I think has this sort of skill set for reality TV, this incredible present. She's very present. She's very open. She's listening very intensely. And, when she was first on Survivor, you go back and watch the early seasons of Survivor where women were seen as Black Widows or villains. And it honestly barely computes now. You don't even understand why, because our culture has changed a lot. And really, she was just smart and, and using all of her wiles, both the fact that she was stunningly beautiful and also extremely intelligent, to get one over on the guys. And that used to be something that made you a villain. Now it just makes you someone people admire, which I think is an interesting and good change. But you get it, right? Like, you get it. I just talking to Parvati, I'm here for an hour. A couple hours later, I would give her my immunity like this. I would do it.
I heard it through the course of the interview of
I
where it
would.
started to where it ended. I heard you being charmed.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you pointed it out at a play, and I was like, this is very much, I have never gotten to meet Bill Clinton, but you would always read about Bill Clinton like you were the only man in the room. You were the only woman in the room. If he talked to you, nobody else existed. You felt like he was really listening. And I was like, is that a Parvati type?
Oh, for sure. I mean, just, yeah, it's why she's so good at these shows. It's why she's been able to make it, in all these, her job. Yeah. Basically her career. Yeah.
Dorinda, too, you had this really kind of what turned out to be a sweet moment talking about her ex, rest in peace, Richard, who worked in government. And you actually pulled out a day planner or something because you were a speechwriter for Hillary Clinton when you were younger. And there was like a fundraiser at Richard and Dorinda's house. And she remembers that so specifically. And that leads her down to this path, you guys, where she was talking about, like they would have think tanks, and not just Democratic think tanks with Republicans. She remembers these memories of like making lasagna for people she was scared of. It's this really beautiful memory that you don't get to hear her talk specifically about enough on her time on reality television. Are those the kind of moments that really even blow you away, having podcasted for as long as you have?
Yeah, she like clearly misses those days. And she talks about this, that part of why she had wanted to be on Housewives was, I think, the space from that had left, right? The life she had when she was with Richard that she clearly like misses and thinks so fondly of. But yeah, what had happened, I had been a speechwriter for Hillary Clinton, and at that time, Hillary had gone to a fundraiser at Dorinda's home with Richard, and I think that just brings up a lot of really powerful memories for her. But I do, with Dubrow too, basically hearing someone just be honest about the appeal of fame. We talk around it. We talk around it in politics. We're deeply uncomfortable with conversations about ambition. We just are. I don't know why. I don't totally understand why. It's seen as a bad quality to have. Politicians don't like to talk about being ambitious. There's this aw shucks quality to the whole thing. And so you end up with all these hyper intelligent, strategic, super disciplined people who have been thinking about running for office since they were children, trying to act as though it's all just happening to them. And if it happens, it happens. If it works out, it works out. And the same thing often, I think, happens on Real Housewives. Like, less and less now. I think we're being more honest about it. But there's this way in which we want people to pretend to be reluctant in all things. It's part of our culture now too. In that, like, caring about it, wanting it, being thirsty for it is embarrassing. And maybe that's less true when someone's saying, like, I really want to be a doctor or I really want to be a teacher. We respect that more, right? Maybe that has something to do with what we view as what we value, what we think is morally good. It's a real kind of like judgmental thing. But if you want to be on Housewives, you got to fight for it. And in this strange way, we both want to watch them climb over each other for climb the greasy pole to get to the top, and yet to admit that it's a powerful thing that they want to be famous is embarrassing. It's like, why like why? And so that is part of what I think is appealing about Survivor, which is it's a very earnest show where you're allowed to strive, and it's for people that really want to hustle and try, and that trying is cool and important inside of that world. But I just wish we could all be just a bit more honest about ambition, right? Like I see it all the time with kind of politicians that do this thing of like, you want this job because you think you're really fucking smart and you think you'll be good at it and you want the attention and you want the acclaim. Like, it's okay. Why can't we just talk about it?
I mean, why are you here? I mean, if not, you would be with your family and living a very private life. And, to your point in terms of Housewives, it is really interesting. That's why the Terry Dubrow one really blew me away, because he talked about how they got on the show, which, he was pitching another show, but also about their family, their LGBTQ living in Orange County. And also he said after he got botched, it was like, felt like king of the world, but also in terms of dealing with producers who they're very close with, but at the same time, the producers aren't your friends. They're trying to produce a show to slap on commercials with. So they will lie to you. And he says this without reservation. He's not like hateful towards the producers. He realizes they have a job to do. But I think always I try to remind the audience is like, remember what you're watching. It's like, you've got to think about all sides. And that's what this show, I just so geeked out about that, especially with the Terry one. I was just like, he is being so honest and revealing without being like, I'll tell you some dirt. He was just matter of fact about his experience on reality television, and what a powerful platform. Because in 2025, I sometimes wonder, is it worth it? Because you're getting so much hate online. You have your fans and you have your hate, just like in politics. You are getting so much hate that I was like, how much tummy tea is it worth to sell in regards to like making this profitable, because it's financially profitable, but making it profitable for your soul in 2025.
Yeah, but that's interesting. That's part of it too. People on these shows also go through this. It depends, different for different people, but it matters whether or not people know themselves when they go on these shows. I think there's broadly two categories of people. One is the kind of person who they may not be totally comfortable with their worst qualities, but on some level they're just comfortable around their own skin, and they let the chips fall where they may. There's another kind of person on these shows which just has a completely false version of who they are. On some level they know it's false, but they think they've been getting away with the performance of it. They think that they get away with something that actually they probably already don't in their private lives. But reality television and political campaigns have a lot in common. One thing is the truth you will accidentally reveal yourself. You just will not be able to stop it. It's too intense. There's too much scrutiny. And one thing that happens with reality stars who are trying to create an illusion of who they are, they see that it doesn't work and they double down. They try something else. They kind of spin out a little bit.
They pivot.
But they ultimately land in the same place as I think the people who do know themselves better or are more comfortable in their own skin, which is they learn to accept that the hate is part of their success too. And they see it more as an asset and get more comfortable with it. And that being despised in these shows is better than being boring, right? I'm watching Salt Lake and I don't know where it's going to go. We're watching it in real time. but Brittany is a good example of a character like that. Someone who is just unmoored and doesn't seem to know herself, or if she does, is unwilling to be honest about that, and is putting on a show, and it seems to be working, right?
They threw a high body count hair party in her honor last week,
and I don't she's getting more attention, and I don't know where it ends up, and I don't know what happens in her life, but you see someone just realizing, wow, whatever people think of me, it's keeping me here, right?
Yep.
And people figure out how to get comfortable with that pretty quickly. They figure out how to be for what's happening. People in politics do that too. Get to be for what's happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. And Salt Lake City, by some weird alchemy, has turned into like the perfect reality show that is just, I always say it's like a David Lynch movie or a horror film during the day or a John Watt. It's all of these combinations where you genuinely care about each of these characters, but they're all doing these separate things. Like Brittany has different motivations, and you have the Jared stuff, you have the unicorn, you have all of these visual imageries and jokes, and the way that they, it reminds me of old school Roni, how they would talk over each other. And if you had different audio tracks for each one of those housewives, you could watch it 3 times because each lady is saying something fascinating over the other lady, where that's how I feel about Salt Lake City. When you're watching Salt Lake City, are you as entertained as some old school Bravo viewers are right now?
I like it. I do have, I do, no, but I'm watching it. I'm in. I do think it's hard. There's just a few. I know people compare it to old school Roni. I just feel the awareness of the show so much, and there was a looseness to the old seasons of Roni and a that I miss. There's a, we're on television and we're gonna have this fight and we're gonna play this out. It just, they're all producing a little too hard at times, and I do have a problem with that. It's actually something I would love to talk to one of them about, and I hope I will have a chance. I will say only that way, that I hope I will have a chance very soon to talk to one of them about
Come on,
this.
Shed Media, let's do this.
But I think it's a good group. Like, I'm like interested. I think they're, and I do like the show, but there's I look at that confrontation with Lisa Barlow and, dismissed, whatever it was.
Yes.
And I'm like, what am I watching here? What's real? There's just it. I'm like, what's actually, I have a feeling I miss too much what I'm not seeing. I think I feel too much what I'm not seeing when I'm watching this show. And I didn't feel that as much in other in seasons of New York that this is being compared to. And I don't know what the answer is to that.
But it's like turning back the clock, John. I don't know if we can ever go back to those early seasons because the internet is in full swing. Like, they make their full careers this now. Like, back in old Roni, I mean, it was so great to hear Dorinda talk about Ramona back in the day. Like, Dorinda was like, no, she is very smart. She is very smart. Even before the show, you got to understand this about Ramona. That was such a great little detail that, it's like, there's a reason why they were fascinating to begin with, where Salt Lake is a group of women that have been inspired by earlier seasons of Housewives shows, and Bravo will never be able to shake that off. Just like Survivor will never be able to shake that off.
So that, to me, I think maybe that never, so these are rules, like, shows evolve and the rules of those shows evolve. And how do they evolve? Each person brings a way of bending, changing, shaping it, making it their own. That's true on Survivor, happens slowly. True in Real Housewives. It is hard to imagine how this sort of path changes, but then all of a sudden there's somebody that shows up and they figure out how to do it. And I think this is actually true. At some point, this will happen in Survivor. This will happen in Real Housewives, where someone, by dint of personality, charisma, perspective, brazenness, toughness, interest, will find a way to kind of blow it up. And then all of a sudden the rules will change. And when the rules change and people don't totally know the rules, that's when the great stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
So somebody's going to come in and obliterate these kind of whatever norms. The norms is what we're talking about, right?
And create the new norm. Yeah.
Look, there was a lot of people that, in a way, Trump did that in politics. He did.
Exactly.
And it was inconceivable. It was not conceivable how much politics could change. And by the way, that's been a terrible thing to me in my mind, that's been a terrible thing for the country. But I hope it has also allowed Democrats, and for some it has, and for some it shamefully has not, to kind of widen in their minds what is possible. And it just takes somebody with the right, in the right place at the right time, with the right incentives, and suddenly what's possible will change.
Well, listen, Mamdani, I mean, it's very been interesting to watch his rise or the memes being made about him. It's very Housewives to me in reality TV. Dorinda did say, in terms of that Ramona conversation, is that you brought up, Palm Beach and her in Florida and could she run and stuff. And Dorinda acted like she had never heard this before. Like, oh my God. But then she immediately goes, but I think she could win. She'd probably win. She'd probably win. And she probably would win. Think about it.
Maybe. Yeah, it depends on the district. Ramona, Ramona's tough. I mean, look, she's smart. Ramona has always been smart. I mean, look, she was she was understood what her role was pretty well.
Well, in terms of the reality show landscape, do you see somebody out there right now on either party besides Ramona that you're like, they have what it takes for politics or that kind of energy? And I know this is kind of a silly question, but it's not silly because that's what we're talking about with this show, that they would be somebody good in politics.
You think someone from the reality world who would be good at politics?
In the reality world, in your opinion. A lot of times Kim Kardashian's name's thrown out there is that she's really wanting to dabble. But do you see anybody on any of these shows, even Survivor, is a Parvati good for this? Is there somebody that you're like, wow, you actually are weirdly inspiring?
I think there are survivors that would be great in politics. I do. Parvati would be interesting. She would. I think I always like Jonathan Penner. He was always a really smart guy. Had a really very charismatic. Somebody I always really liked. That's an interesting question. I would have said, Bethany.
The promise of Bethany, when you watch those early seasons, she was the entry point for all of us. I just recently rewatched season 1 and she was so the everyman, every woman,
Yeah, I mean, look at what Ariana's done post Vanderpump, right? She really turned that into something pretty amazing. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I mean, the thing I take away more broadly rather than just individual people is what can you learn from the people that were the best on reality and what would be the application in politics? And, when a politician knows themselves, is comfortable in their own skin, and is successfully able to convey that consistently, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton is a good example of that too. It's not always ideological. Donald Trump does
very much
does that well. Thomas Massie, a kind of libertarian, very far right Republican who's pretty anti-Trump at this point, has been able to do that. Right, a lot of people can do this. It's not about what exactly they believe, but how they convey it. It really gives you power. Look at that Mamdani Trump meeting, right? There are people that are like, oh, when Mamdani does it, people on the left really like it. But if Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries or Nancy Pelosi or a more moderate Democrat had a good meeting with Trump, you'd be furious. And I actually that's fair. Now you think you think there's a double standard. I think it's something deeper. The reason you're comfortable or inherently more trusting of someone like Mamdani in that moment is because you already have baked in to the price of Mamdani that he knows who he is, that he's taken risks for his views, that his views are authentically held, and he's willing to fight for them. And so when he goes into a meeting with Trump and he acts nicer than you might expect, you give him some space to operate because you have a sense of who he is at a deeper level. With moderate Democrats that feel a bit more like they've been buffeted by events, like you don't know what they stand for, if they kind of shift and don't seem like they're tough enough on Trump, you start to question where their true ethics are, whether they're willing to fight, because you don't have the same built up reservoir of credibility. And that to me is a lesson, right? On reality shows, someone like Ramona, someone like Bethany, that seem like they know themselves, right? They are just they are more confident. They can handle the ways the shows change around them. They can be tough. They can be themselves, right? They can not forgive Jill Zarin if they want, right? but seriously,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But people that people that don't know themselves, they start to worry, what does the audience think of me? Who do I have to be today? Who do I have to perform for? How do I act like this? How do I stay in the mix? But we can smell it and it doesn't work and they get constricted. and they get a little bit lost and they lose their way. And so to me, there is a big lesson for in politics, which is the more you are able to convey who you are and prove to people that what you believe is so important to you, you take some risks in order to defend it. Ironically, the more space that gives you to adjust, change, take chances, meet with someone like Trump, reach out to someone that your allies might dislike, that your base might dislike, and that is something you learn. That is something that's absolutely true on reality shows, and it's and an equally important, equally relevant in politics.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is this, it's weird. When I think of a politician knowing themselves, I think there's like, it's a brilliance. But when I think about reality stars, I think it's obliviousness. I think it's like by some weird magic that they just don't give a shit. Like Ramona's out there just being purely Ramona. I'm going to beat Ramona and I'm going to tell you how I feel. And there's a brilliance in that, but I always think of it as just this magical obliviousness.
Yeah, I think there's the Ramona version of it, and then there's the Luann version of it, right? Or the Sonia version of it, which I think, and I'm very early in Atlanta, so forgive me if I am watching people evolve in real time. But in the early seasons of Atlanta, Sheree is a Luann type, which is putting on a kind of being the version, like so trying to perform this version of who she wants to be seen as. Well, just beneath the surface, you see this sort of, not even that far beneath, you just see this kind of vibrating chaos waiting to come out. Sonia was like that a lot. And the tension between who they want to be and who you see them to be is part of what makes them great characters. Ramona's different. Like, I don't think Ramona's unaware of the ways in which she can be just absolutely heinous. Like when she says, "I'm not perfect," but like she knows she's more than not just, she's not just imperfect. So that to me is a difference. And I think politicians, they fall into those two categories too. Like, I think JD Vance is not oblivious at all.
No, God,
at all.
no,
at all.
But see, I think we can sniff that out. We sense that immediately, you know? As we start winding down here, a couple of things. Have you been approached about Traitors?
Listen, wouldn't it be fun if I got to go on Traitors?
But wouldn't it be fun if we broke the news here?
There's no news to break. No news to break. No news.
Would you ever consider that after your experience on Survivor?
The Survivor was... My feeling about Survivor is I don't feel bad about the experience. I feel like I didn't get the experience. You know, because it's not like I didn't like fall flat on my face. I think there are ways I could have played it differently, obviously, and any other way I played it couldn't have ended worse. But it did feel as though I got a bad break, and that meant I never got the full experience that I wanted. It was fun, and I learned a lot. It was interesting, and I learned more in at the Ponderosa after, to be honest, with all these people that I got to spend a lot more time with than I thought I would off camera. But I like getting ready for it, thinking about it, training for it, going out there, experiencing it was all worth it. I just wish I had more time in the game. Traitors, in many ways, a Survivor with food. How bad would that be? Couldn't be that bad.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to wear fun costumes and stuff like that, and watch Alan Cumming perform. I mean, that sounds pretty good. I mean, I was just thinking, I was like, God, you would kind of be perfect on that show. And I was just wondering if you had already been approached, because to me, that would be like a really interesting, easy casting choice. And if you would even be willing to do it, or if your time on that kind of, but then I listen to this show and I hear you talk and you're in it. Like you think in these ways. And that's what's fascinating to me. And I guess the other question is, you guys just had Crooked Con. I just got back from BravoCon. And it is very interesting, the fandoms in both. And there is this great intersection. But in terms of these episodes of Love It or Leave It, what has been the feedback from your hardcore fans that don't watch reality television?
So people have liked the episodes. I think it is... First of all, the people that love reality shows are loving the series. They're just loving it. Yeah. The people that don't, I think, are checking it out. And like, that's why I'm trying to make sure that these are conversations that are, I think, more than just taking you through the shows themselves, and more about like the culture of the shows and the motivations and what we can learn from them. Because I do think there's people that understand and love reality television. There's people that are pretty skeptical of it. And for the people that are skeptical of it, I think it is good to hear people pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about fame, talk about the harms of the part of the questions around it. Like, I think Dr. Terry Dubrow is pretty honest about having kids on the show, being a doctor on the show, the compromises, the fun, the appeal of it, the intoxication of it. I mean, one thing I talked to Dubrow about was, that there are housewives of people on these shows that just don't need another dime in their lives, and yet they're still so hungry for it. So how is the fame more valuable than money, right? Because there are people that are on these shows because they need a check, but there are people that don't.
But that's why I always love the Dubrows, because I always say on my show, I don't have to worry about them. Like, I know if Heather ever gets cut loose, they're fine. I worry about the people that I'm like, I'm going to have to take care of the Bachelorette contestants for the rest of my life, because there's only so many product endorsements that are out there for reality stars. But with the Dubrows, I don't have to worry about it. So by the way, guys, the Terry one is what starts this series. Listen to that one first. You will be fully in. That is the best interview I've heard from Dr. Dubrow ever. And he reveals so much, but in this really unassuming, great way. But the rest of the episodes are just perfect as well. I mean, did you go into this one way, and now as you go through the series are thinking about like, oh, this actually turned out a little different than what I was expecting?
I think we went in with more of a plan around, like, we're going to have one part of the conversation that's about television and one part of the conversations is about Paul. And now I really am more just sort of letting the conversations go where they go. With Rachel Lindsay, we had a great conversation about Chris Harrison that is very much worth listening, and we had
and you guys remember, she's the one that had very pointed comments about Chris Harrison. Chris Harrison, is no longer the host of the Bachelor franchise.
Well, and she had actually really she happened to be hosting Extra when Chris Harrison came on and was just not prepared for the controversy that was about to engulf him. And she just sort of asked him the questions I think a lot of people would ask in that situation. And people then blame Rachel Lindsay for the fact that Chris Harrison had this PR crisis. But we also talked about love, reality shows about love, I think were for me the hardest to ever really get into, because I'm uncomfortable with it. Like, I'm sorry, why are the conservatives protesting drag brunches? Look what these people are doing to marriage. And so I was really interested, and it was fascinating because she's honest about it, and the ways in which it's a show and the ways in which the part that's really, I think, I check out the Rachel Lindsay one when it comes out as well, because people are people. That to me is what I think connects these politics to that. All the cameras and all the artifice and all the efforts to produce yourselves and all the ways in which the shows become meta and all the ways in which people are worried about the comments. People are people, and you can claim all you want that you're not gonna take this seriously and you're just doing it to have an experience. But then all of a sudden you're on a date with somebody and you're having a conversation, and sure, the cameras are there, but you're people. And feelings are feelings, and you're not totally able to stop yourself from being yourself. And so there's a really, like, talking to Rachel about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette was very, I learned a lot just sitting there as somebody that actually hasn't watched that much of those kinds of shows, because I was sort of like, I don't know, when you're playing with love, you're playing with that's the stuff of life, and it just made me nervous. But it was such a good conversation.
Suspect. If you go on a reality competition series about love, you're already suspect in my eyes. And I think that's just one of those things. It's a hurdle in 2025 that you have to get over, because there's not a lot of ethical reality competition series based around love anymore. I mean, maybe Love on the Spectrum, maybe.
I don't know.
Two last things. We're talking a couple days before Thanksgiving. What do you watch on Thanksgiving? I mean, like, do you throw on an episode of Salt Lake? What are you digging through, and do you feel guilty about it?
No, I don't feel. Watch whatever you fucking want. Don't consume anything feeling guilty. If you're gonna either do it or don't do it. Here's the thing.
Pumpkin pie as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. You know what? Don't either consume it or don't consume it. But man, I spent so many years feeling guilty every time I ate food I liked. What was the point of that? Like, don't let go. If you like the show, you like the show. I'll probably watch some of the dog show. I'll probably be watching some of Atlanta. I'm going to be playing Hades 2 on my Nintendo Switch because I've earned it. And I'm not going to feel guilty for even a fucking second.
Well, I don't think it can get better than that, you guys. This new series on Love It or Leave It is where you can find it. It is so worth your time. I hope there is 1 billion episodes. I'm not even sure how many episodes this is going to go because they intersperse it with his normal episodes. But man, I look forward to every new episode, and you guys are too. I'm so happy he's here today because I don't think enough of you guys know this is out there. And I think if you are a fan of reality series and how the sausage gets made and the reality of the reality, this is the series for you. And I think in these times, it is so important to listen to this. So please, it's not even doing me a favor. You are doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, do yourself a favor.
It is. I'm gonna eat whatever the fucking I want this Thanksgiving.
Damn right.
And watch
Damn right.
Jon Lovett, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Great talking to you.